Today, I'm joined by Nil Patel, who's the Chief Data and Technology Officer at a really innovative company called OttoCar. We're going to learn a little bit more about Otto in a minute. We're going to dive into topics that are on every tech leader's mind. Managing cost and complexity, AI, how you deal with the legacy systems and new technology. How do you deal with security, scale, especially in a high growth business, which Otto certainly is. All right, so OttoCar is Europe's largest provider of electric vehicles to private hire drivers. OttoCar really is redefining access to self-employment through flexible financing for those drivers, access to really reliable, cost-efficient vehicles, and then mobility support services for over 20,000 drivers in the UK. It's a really interesting and unique new high growth business model, and we'll dig into that in a bit. So first, thank you, Nil, for joining.
Thank you.
Maybe we could start by, you could share a little bit about OttoCar, what you do, and how the business is growing.
Yeah, absolutely. OttoCar's a truly fascinating business, and a lot of people won't have heard about OttoCar. But if you live in London, you will certainly have seen an OttoCar. Like you said, we're a fleet operator. We've got about 6,000 vehicles in and around the London area. And if you ever get into, an electric ride-hailing vehicle, Uber and Otto, Uber or a Bolt vehicle, it could be one of ours. We provide, more vehicles to this industry than anyone else does in the UK. My role over at OttoCar is CTO, and I look after both our proprietary technology, some of which we build and manage ourselves, and manage all of the third-party integrations and other platforms that we support to keep, mobility running essentially in London.
Fascinating. So, technology is really at the heart of what AutoCar delivers, and the platform itself, has grown tremendously, as well as the space is constantly changing. Your services are constantly changing, and you've got to deal with budget pressures, right? So maybe you can talk a little about how do you deal with, the need to operate within tight constraints with the need to invest, especially in emerging tech and new technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the age-old kind of question around technology, balancing budgets and balancing investment. It's always a tricky subject, but it's really about strategic prioritization and that long-term thinking. I'm quite lucky because at OttoCar, we've had a history of always leaning into the future. The business and its kind of core values have always led by innovation. We were the first to bring electric vehicles into the ride-hailing industry, with only fleet in the ride-hailing space that proactively invests in driver and passenger safety. All of our cars are retrofitted with safety technology. We treat innovation not as a luxury, but a core part of our kind of driver for competitiveness. And I'm kind of fortunate enough to have a leadership team that's always looking for ways to innovate and invest in technology to give us that competitive advantage.
That's
Yeah, sorry. And, we're in the fortunate position to be a financially strong organization. However, that being said, we still have our pressures to maintain margins, and with prices going up all around us. And, we've always been a lean organization, and this is a result of our investment in technology. Now, this has meant that being lean has meant that we've had to be agile. We test, learn, and fail fast. And even given our size today, we can still do that. And we're able to run quite a lean team and test and learn very quickly. This means that once we've identified an opportunity for technology, we're really quick at doing low cost, high speed pilots and validating the use of this technology.
So let's talk a little about sort of strategy and AI in particular, and what you've seen, how it's impacting your business. Now, you've led both data and AI teams before auto across banking and retail, and then now obviously in mobility. So you've seen a lot. You've seen the evolution of AI. All of a sudden, the last couple of years, CEOs are paying a lot of attention to AI. How do you make sure that the expectations in the organization around a new technology like AI are aligned with reality? And maybe you can share a bit about how Otto is deploying AI to drive its business.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess first of all, the biggest challenge around AI and technology, and data challenges and data strategy challenges, is around managing expectations. Now, you've got CEOs and business leaders who are deeply focused on vision, outcomes, and impact, while your technology teams are focused on systems, models, technology, metrics. Bringing those different perspectives together can often be challenging. CEOs are deeply focused on those visions and outcomes, and bridging that gap requires really good communication between your technology leads and your business. And we as technology leaders have to make sure that our technology investment are clearly aligned with the business goals. And our data strategy and our AI strategy has to directly contribute to those business goals. And all of our investments are aligned to our core business OKRs and kind of our mission. And our core mission is to get our loved ones home safely. And you mentioned, like, how do we embed AI to help us do that?
Yeah.
Um, I'd love to give you a really good example of what we do, of how we're embedding AI. So all of our vehicles are retrofitted with safety technology, which allows us to manage safety within our vehicles. So, in real time, we have algorithms running that tell us if drivers are driving badly, if there's
Hmm.
incidents with the vehicle, if the vehicle's broken down, which means that we can intervene in real time and
Right.
make sure that both our drivers are safe, but more importantly, our passengers are safe, and we're able to give the best, passenger experience we possibly can. Because with 6,000 moving objects, we've got a big responsibility to make sure that we are safely operating our fleet.
That's amazing. And you can see how that safety element can be hugely valuable to your operators and obviously to the passengers as well, and to the reputation of the industry is really important, considering where we came from in the old taxi days where none of this was monitored at all. Let's talk a little about the team. So, you know, at Freshworks, we're constantly looking for the best talent, and it's hard because there's a lot of competitors who are looking for similar talent, people who are well versed in technology today, well versed in AI. Maybe you can talk about, your approach to assembling and recruiting teams at Otto, and then how you think about talent generally across the different disciplines within Otto.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still in the process of assembling and scaling our teams, and I don't know if I've cracked it myself. Um, it is a massive challenge finding the right technology skills in one place. Finding the right talent is I think it's just becoming more and more challenging. Um, what we've done is we've adopted a multi-location strategy, which includes a UK core base of engineers, supported by a nearshore team in Lisbon, and a further offshore team in India.
Hmm.
Um, and this has allowed us to get access to some of the best talent whilst protecting our margins as well, which is also super important.
Mhm.
Um, but what it means is that if we've got a position, we have three options and three locations we can recruit from and make sure we are getting the right candidate for the right job.
Right, and that's incredibly challenging because you need to make sure there's a cultural fit and people are excited about what you're doing and their skills align to your mission. And that we are constantly, make seeking to find new sources of talent, new ways of getting people excited to work at Freshworks. It's an ongoing challenge for anybody, I think, in technology. Now, let's talk a little bit about kind of the balance between the more legacy systems or heavyweight systems. Think ERP. Think about your HRIS, and then okay, you've got them sort of at the center, but then there's a lot of other newer systems that are coming in. Like our CIO mentioned to me that we have over 1,000 different pieces of software in our business. how do you manage all of that? How do you manage the complexity?
I mean, it's managing legacy in kind of automotive is challenging kind of in itself. Um, we and I mentioned earlier that we build and manage our own proprietary fleet management capability. And we were lucky enough to make an early decision to adopt an API first strategy. We realized that this platform was only going to be successful if we could integrate the best third party capabilities with the best of our own technology. And so integration was a key philosophy of our application design right from the start. Now, having said that, there's still significant challenges. And, as I mentioned, like in the automotive industry, every single vehicle runs on its own platform.
Mm,
Most accessible, or data doesn't come to us in a unified way. Um, our fleet comprises of more or less every single manufacturer you could imagine.
hmm,
Um, and we've had to do things like retrofit our vehicles, with the technology I was talking about earlier, to send us that unified data. Um, and also, what we try and do is consolidate our technology. And whether that's using Freshworks as a platform for managing our customer services, or other technologies, we like to consolidate and make sure that we've got tight integrations with these third-party applications.
interesting. So I'm curious in the mobility space, are there unique, cyber is obviously an issue for everybody. Is there anything unique about mobility with cyber, and how do you manage those risks?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always top of mind. And if you think about security, and if I take it away from the context of cybersecurity, there's security around fleets has always been a problem, or something that we've had to, very uh, closely keep an eye on. Because it's such an expensive asset that's out there that is
Mm,
prone to, getting stolen, and or getting vandalized, and so on. And this focus um, has really translated in management caring about the safety of that vehicle, um, and all of our employees actually being quite invested in making sure that these assets are kept safe. The challenge today with vehicles is that they are no longer mechanical; they are software driven, and we need to ensure that we have the right protections to ensure that those vehicles aren't tampered with, or um, exposed in any, from a software perspective. So it becomes more and more challenging, I think, as these vehicles become more and more self-enabled as well. This is actually just going to continue to become a problem. So safety is super important. Um, we rely heavily on third parties to help us with this as well. We know that in-house, we we know that in-house we may not have all of the capabilities
right.
to manage such risks. And this is where we may leverage kind of best-in-class third-party technology or service providers to help us support, because they really do bring deep domain expertise to be able to quickly identify threats and mitigate any exposure to us as well. And so that's how we're kind of thinking about managing risk and making sure that our vehicles are safe, and also all of our technology landscape is also managed and handled securely.
Secure. Yep. So, last question for you. If you step back, what are some insights or leadership lessons, or one that stands out that you think others in your position, technology leaders, should carry on in the future, and might benefit from?
Mm. I am. Yeah, it's a great question, and I think, like, I don't know if this is this is particularly um, insightful, but from my perspective, I think it's so easy for technology teams to get absorbed into the complexity
Mm,
of building world class technology solutions that they often forget what they're building it for. Um, it's important that our technology teams have strong collaboration and understanding of the business that they're operating in. Um, and the language, like right down to the language we use, which, we often use language that separates technology from the business. We
Mhm.
often say the business wants this, tech wants that. At the end of the day, the business is technology, and the technology wouldn't exist without the business. They're wanting the same things. So I always try to remind our technology teams that ultimately our job isn't to ship code, is to ship cars. So my lesson or my advice is to facilitate a strong collaboration with your developers and your tech leads with the rest of the business so they really don't forget what they're building technology for.
Excellent. So, Neil, thank you so much. Nil Patel, CTO of Otto. Otto is, if you're in the UK and you get into an electric Uber, chances are that or other ride sharing service, chances are that vehicle is managed by Otto, and Otto's making the drivers safer. The technology is at the heart of and riders safer. Otto's technology is at the heart of everything that the company provides, and Nil's right at the center of that. So really fascinating talking with you, and I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.